Hi friends! You guys haven't seen my face in like a really long time, and this desktop setup is really weird because you're stacked on like 10 notebooks right now, and I'm going to be looking over at my computer screen a lot because I have notes on it. So that'll probably get annoying, but it's going to hurt my neck a whole lot more than it's going to hurt you guys. So today I wanted to go over some books that have been influential, I guess, in my life. Some of these books I've read recently, some of them I read years ago, and others I kind of pick up and reread off and on. I own a lot of these books. Some of them I've let people borrow. Others have just been audiobooks, so I will write them all down below in the description box. And what I'm not going to do is rate these books because I don't really agree with rating a book, because I've loved books that other people have hated, and I've hated books that other people have loved, and I just don't think rating a book is very fair. I think two people can read the same book and get different information and come back differently from each book that they read, the interpretation that they gathered, I guess. I'm also so sorry about the background noise. I do have a window AC unit, but if I turn it off, I will melt and die. So, okay, this book I was super excited for, and I think every runner should read it. This book is called We Can't Run Away From This by Damian Hall. This came out in 2022. I think I read it in probably 2023, so like when I had just started running. It kind of an overview of the book. It goes over environmental impacts from racing, or the running industry, I guess. So he talks about the environmental impact of running, topics like your running gear, what you eat, what you wear on your feet, the watches you use. He provides insights on like sustainability, gives advice, but also just kind of information for you to kind of take and do whatever with the information that you're given. Definitely thought-provoking, I guess you could say. So some of the stuff I don't think agree with is the right word, but you know, aspects of this book I resonated with and some I did not. So Damien discusses how like running shoes are marketed to last 200 to 300 miles, where he kind of discusses and proves that they last more like 1,000. And that's kind of something that I took, and I also what's the word? I took and I practiced. So I have never really thrown out running shoes unless I have completely destroyed them, which is easy to do when you are running ultras. So I do that pretty quickly. Another thing that I do that he recommends is every race you enter, typically you get a t-shirt with, like it's a free t-shirt. Debatably free because you do pay to enter a race, but you can sometimes opt out of taking a t-shirt. The last marathon I did, I opted out of taking a t-shirt, and they planted a tree instead. So little stuff like that, I think does make an impact, or I guess makes you feel better. He discusses focusing on individual footprints versus more system-wide changes that need to take place that are kind of out of our control. Yeah, I would just definitely recommend reading it, and maybe get it from your local library instead of buying it online and getting it shipped to you. The next book on my list is kind of the same wavelength. It is called Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet by Thich Nhat Hanh. I've read probably 20 books by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I still have no idea how to actually say his name. That's just like how it comes out in my head. So this book is about saving the planet, obviously. It's about the environmental impact you have. If you are not a Buddhist or interested in Buddhist philosophy, this book is probably not for you, but I personally think everyone can take away something from it. So Thich Nhat Hanh goes over mindfulness and being present in the moment. He talks about compassion and being courageous. And of course he talks about sustainable living, mindfulness, what it means to take care of yourself and others on this planet. He talks about interconnectedness, as in us and the planet are the same, so we should take care of ourselves to take care of the planet, vice versa. He talks about the ecological crisis that is going on. The information in this book wasn't new to me. I grew up reading Buddhist books, but I think it just really impacted my thinking of how showing up for myself can really help drive change for the planet. You guys, my phone just keeps deleting every single video I record, and I don't know why, but I've had to review this book probably 10 times, so I think that's pretty fitting for this book. This book is called The Journey Within by Radhanath Swami. This book, it's a lot heavier, it's a lot more woo-woo than the last two books that I mentioned. Definitely my forte. But not everyone's. So this book, he talks about God a lot, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. And I won't get into my beliefs, but I think whether you are Hindu or Buddhist or Christian, I think everyone should read this book. In this book, Radhanath Swami talks about mindfulness, interconnectedness, spiritual dimension, introspection, self-discovery, all the good stuff. It's funny because in this book he talks about in the 1980s he was teaching a class on the Gita at Ohio University in Athens, and he talked about a student who was protesting what he was teaching, and he eventually just enrolled in the class and ended up taking the class. In the book, he really emphasizes your mental health, talks about personal growth and acceptance, enhanced relationships, greater resilience, and just loving yourself a little bit more, and loving others as well. He talks about the importance of journaling, meditation, spending time in nature, and seeking guidance when that stuff isn't appropriate, like seeking a therapist and stuff like that. It's really all about the journey within, as the book says. I feel like I am a very self-aware person. I am grossly aware of my faults and my strengths, and I think that book really opened the door for me in discovering that. Okay, I don't think the next book needs much introduction. It is the Bhagavad-Gita. This version is probably the easiest to read in the English language, the easiest to interpret. Basically, whenever I'm feeling lost or confused, I just open it to a random page, and typically I can find something that will help me in that moment. Okay, let's talk about fiction, and I don't have any of these books on me, but I will put them down below. The first book I want to talk about is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. If you've never heard of the Bronte sisters, look them up, look up their lives. It's so sad. Their lives were so sad. but they were amazing, amazing writers. I actually read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte first, and that book was incredible. Just so well written. Every chapter was just like a whole plot, and you just couldn't stop reading. It's such a big book, but you cannot stop reading it. I really had high hopes for Wuthering Heights. It is written by her younger sister Emily, and I had high hopes. I did not like it as much, but I took away more from it. Alright, Wuthering Heights is pretty wild, and I'm definitely going to spoil it for you, so just letting you know now. It really highlights, I mean, it talks about like a very emotionally abusive relationship of Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff. They start out as kids, and it goes into adulthood when Catherine has her child Kathy and Heathcliff has his child, and it talks about really toxic love and how vengeful and hateful a relationship can be. It was one of those books that are very impactful because of how dramatic the plot is and how thought-provoking the thought is. I mean, the story really highlights the impact of social class and the limited opportunities for women and children, as well as just the lack of control women had on their lives. Heathcliff is a protagonist, but at the same time, like, you really grow to hate him. Catherine, you would also consider a protagonist, but you also just don't really resonate with these characters at all. And you find yourself both hating and loving them at the same time. Like, I would categorize Heathcliff as very abusive and Catherine as really stupid, and it doesn't make a great relationship. And what ends up happening is Heathcliff goes and marries someone else, Catherine goes and marries someone else, and she ends up dying from complications of childbirth, from having her daughter, who's not Heathcliff's daughter. And there's a part in the book where Heathcliff is just so angry at Catherine for dying. Heathcliff goes on to say in the book, right after Catherine Earnshaw has died, he says, "Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you, haunt me then. The murdered do haunt their murderers." So he wants her to haunt him no matter how crazy it makes it. If you've ever been in like an emotionally abusive relationship, I think that you can really relate to some of this, or maybe some of this makes sense to you. I know it did for me. It's just wild because I don't think the Bronte sisters really rarely ever left their living room. So I'm like, how are you guys writing this stuff? Okay, so I think I'm actually just gonna talk about one more book. Because when I kind of sit here and I think about books that have actually influenced me in a way, a book that's really sticking out to me is not a fiction book. That book I had just read, well, I listened to it on audiobook and on Spotify, but that book is called I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Jeanette McCurdy played Sam in iCarly, and she played Sam in Sam and a Cat. And I did not know her personal life. I didn't know where she had come from. I mean, you know, these actors and actresses just get famous, like really famous one day, and they're on like a big TV show, and you know, you don't think about like all of like the other shows that they had been on previous to those shows. And yeah, so in this book, she discusses the abuse and neglect and family drama of her childhood, and how she really didn't ever want to act, and how she was very much forced to do it from a young age. She was paying all of her parents' bills, all of her siblings, grandparents, all their bills, up until her mother died when she was, I think she was 20, something like that. And she wrote the book in 2022, and I don't think I was really ready to read it until recently. It is very triggering, I will say that. She talks a lot about her sexual abuse and physical abuse. She was very much forced to have an eating disorder by her mother. It was just wild to read about. She doesn't really discuss being on iCarly or Sam and Cat too much. She does kind of touch on the abuse that she encountered by Dan Schneider, like the creator of iCarly and Sam and Cat, a little bit, but not too much. She talks about in this book how at the end of Sam and Cat, she was offered $300,000 to never speak about her experience on the show to anyone ever, and she just immediately said no. And now we are hearing about it, a little bit about it in her book, and by other people who said no to that hush money, basically. That part of the book really isn't even a massive part. I think the biggest impact for me was just learning how she coped afterward with the realization of how much she was abused, because she really didn't even realize it in the moment, and the impact that it had on her life afterward, and how when she was no longer forced to act, she just stopped acting. And it was, I don't know, it's just really interesting to me. And for those of us that don't have a great relationship with our mothers, it's something that makes celebrities relatable. It makes them feel like real people when they're dealing with stuff that we dealt with. You know, she doesn't have a great relationship with her mom. She has a bunch of siblings. It was definitely a heavy read, but it's something that will probably impact me for the rest of my life, for better or for worse. Alright, well, thanks for sticking around. Those were all the books that have been influential in my life, at least all the books that I can think of at this moment. If you are interested in seeing more content like this, let me know. It's very odd to film myself as opposed to just filming nature content. Not super comfortable with it, but I have heard that it gets a lot more comfortable the more you do it. I will say I think I'm gonna have to get a vlogging camera, because doing it on an iPhone is not fun. I will write down all of the book titles and authors down below in the description box, and I highly recommend, if you're gonna get any of these books, try to get them from your library first. All right, bye guys.